أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
According to the Lancet British Journal, of the top 20 drugs, the top 20 worst drugs, worse than methamphetamine and crack cocaine, was alcohol. Why? Because not only does it mess with your body, with the individual, it messes with the community at large. It'll mess with both. And you'll find that alcohol, it's a very tricky thing. Intoxicants, khamr, come in very tricky in different ways. For example, a recent phenomenon or epidemic with the Muslim community is an invention made by some rappers in Houston. And it's called purple drink. A lot of the recent rappers are into this drink, And they'll make it look cool to do on TV. And you'll find people come to you with this and other types of drugs, and they'll say things like, well, there's no hadith, there's no Quranic ayah that says weed is haram, marijuana is haram. There is no evidence that purple drink is haram. They will come and say there is no evidence that Coors Light is haram, because people will always try to give you tricks, right? There's always tricks in the details. They'll tell you that the alcohol that was haram was back in the day, they used grapes to make the alcohol, to make the khamr. And that's what was haram. Modern stuff made from wheat and barley is okay, don't worry about it. Or honey, it's okay. They'll start making excuses for their actions. So number one, we talked about alcohol and purple drink. Just like most of you are engineering students, and most or your pre-medical students or your business students. So you have a background with formulas. In mathematics, you have calculus, pre-cal, algebra. There's always going to be different types of formulas, right? Just like that, in usul al-fiqh, in Islamic jurisprudence, in the principles, you'll find formulas. For example, you have an original case, which is alcohol or intoxicant. You have the effective cause. The effective cause, which is, it covers the brain. Khamr or khimar means to cover the brain. By covering the brain, it knocks your senses. So the ruling is that it's haram. Now, if you take the same formula, you have to add the new case. If alcohol, original case, is haram because it intoxicates you, the effective cause. If the new thing, whatever comes out, whether it be Coors Light, whether it be marijuana, whether it be crack cocaine, whether it be ecstasy, whether it be any of these things, because their effect is on the brain, the ruling becomes haram. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Because of the same effective cause. According to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, which is a United States agency, they did a research on marijuana effects. And in this research, they found that the individuals who were chronically smoking weed, what would happen to them, they would start operating at a suboptimal level. In other words, if you're an A student, if you smoke marijuana repeatedly, you'll start becoming a C student. That makes sense. Even after you've given up. After the effects have worn off, you'll still have that suboptimal level of performance. And many things are accompanied with that. For example, hindrance of coordination, increased anxiety, increased depression, and schizophrenia. So there's a common joke when you see people who smoke a lot of marijuana that they're always paranoid about things. They think someone's coming after them. The cops are after them, the FBI is after them, their parents are going to find out, they're going to get busted. They get paranoid. So that is part of what schizophrenia is. It's a very dangerous situation to be in. And it definitely does mess with your senses. had astaghfirullah. So as we can scoot up, inshallah ta'ala, for people who are going to come again in a little bit. In my own experiences, when I was at the university, at Baylor University, there were Muslim and non-Muslim students who got into this vicious cycle of buying the drugs, using the drugs, and then selling the drugs. Buying the drugs, using the drugs, and then selling the drugs. And that was the cycle they got in. Because they needed money for their addiction. So they sold it, and they bought it, and they used it, and this was their cycle. And what happened is, because of this use of these drugs, they got lazy and didn't want to study anymore. So when they got lazy and didn't study, what happens to your grades? They go low. If your grades go low, what happens? The university says, thank you very much for your money. Goodbye. You're ruining our reputation. It is a very dangerous thing to get into. It is a gateway drug, meaning that if you start smoking this marijuana, and you add different drugs to it, and then you go into higher drugs, and more problems happen. In the Ottoman Empire, in our own Islamic history, you'll find that opium was an epidemic in the Muslim community, in the Muslim empire, if you like. Opium. They would take it and eat it. And what would happen is, one narration talks about that a man came for Salatul Isha, the last prayer of the day, in the mosque, in the masjid. He went for the prayer and he bowed down for sujood. And then he fell asleep. And he was gone. The people left, the Jamaat left, went home, came back the next day for prayers, and the man was still sleeping there, in that same position. And the way it was narrated, the people didn't think it was a big deal. In other words, this was happening, and the people didn't say like, oh, la ilaha illallah, somebody came to the masjid and he fell asleep because he was drugged up. It was an epidemic in the community, from the narrations. So we have to be very, very careful on letting these things get to us, because no one is free from these temptations, including myself. The khatib at Salatul Jummah, the imam at the masjid, nobody is free of these temptations. There was a story of Imam Ahmad in Ibn Hanbal, rahmatullah alayh, one of the greatest scholars of this ummah. And shaitan was tempting him, and Imam Ahmad, rahmatullah, beat shaitan in this example. You can come if you want. Please go up a little bit, guys. There's more over here. Please go up. And Imam Ahmad beat shaitan in this example. Shaitan was biting his fingernails because of anxiety, biting his fingernails. And he said, oh Ahmad, you have escaped my grip. You have escaped my grip. Imam Ahmad rahmatullah alayh replied what? Not until the day that I die. It is a constant struggle. I grew up in the Taoist community. And since my days in public school, there was an epidemic in this area for drug problems. Epidemic. And now this has come into the Muslim community. It has come into the Muslim community. And some of you might not like what I have to say today, but to be quite honest with you, as Imam Ibn Hazm rahmatullah alayh said, if you are to anger people, if you have a choice between angering people or angering Allah, choose to anger the people and not to anger Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the job of the khatib to admonish the people about things that are happening in the community. The last major point I will talk about is hookah smoking. Hookah or shisha smoking. Many local bars here in Dallas and across America, of course. It's a very popular pastime. Before I go into hookah, we'll talk about smoking cigarettes in general. A while ago, Al-Azhar University in Egypt came out with the fatwa. Fatwa means Islamic ruling, right? You can say non-binding ruling or something like that. Not something that's dangerous, right, like that. So, a ruling, smoking is makruh. It's disliked. Why? Because the smell of smoke is bad. It's not an attractive smell. And when you come to the masjid, if you eat garlic or you eat onions, it's makruh to be in that state. To come into the masjid and your breath is smelling and you're close to somebody and you're praying with them, it's makruh, disliked. So analogy, right, qiyas would say that because you're coming with your bad smell, like cigarettes, it's like this garlic. But that was before they knew the harmful effects of smoking. Now, we all know, if you smoke, what happens to your lungs? What happens to the lungs? It becomes black as night. And it's a slow suicide, if you want. Having said that, the World Health Organization, in their research, said that a 20-minute session of hookah can equate 100 cigarettes. I'll say it again. A 20-minute session of hookah can equate 100 cigarettes and can lead to death. So do not let people deceive you, because they will come as they came to me when I was in college. They'll say, trust me, it's not haram. Everybody does it. The streets of Iran, the streets of all these countries, everybody is smoking it. Right? We have to differentiate between what Muslims are doing and what Islam says to do. And the sooner we can do that, we can understand that, the easier we can explain to non-Muslims that there's a difference between what Muslims are doing and what Islam says. Or some Muslims do, I should say, and what Islam says. So how do we fight these temptations? I've talked the last minutes about these things, but how do you fight them? Number one, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-Basir. He is all-seeing. And He wants us to have taqwa of Him, have awareness of Him, have the fear of Him. Number two, keep busy in productive or at least halal activities. Keep busy studying your religion, studying for your classes, serving your family, learning a new language, productive things. You understand? Or at least do things that are halal. Hang out with your friends over some coffee, go shopping, play video games, do something, keep yourself busy, play sports. Whatever it is, do something. Because the moment you're idle meaning just sitting there thinking about what to do, that's when shaitan will grab you. That's when he will grab you. I know some of the brothers here like to go fishing at UTD. You know, when you got that bait and that fish comes near, it grabs it, right? And then you pull up and it's got you. Right? That's what